Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 30 of the Joe Cannon Health Podcast. I'm exercise physiologist Joe Cannon, back for another week where we talk about health, fitness, nutrition, wellness, myth busting, and all those things to help you keep living at your best, all without the hype, no spin, no testimonials, just the facts in plain English. The main topic for this week is going to be self-care for your migraine headaches. If you have migraine headaches, I'm going to interview someone who is a massage therapist. His name is Jim Menz, and he has had some really good success with migraine sufferers. And so we're going to talk about migraines and some things that you can do at home right now to hopefully alleviate your migraine headaches. And so that's going to be the main topic for this week. But before we get into any of that, let's talk about the myth of the week. This myth actually was something that was asked of me literally this week. I was at the gym and somebody came up to me and asked if saunas were good for your lungs. Can saunas help detox your lungs and help you stay healthy? So basically, we had a little conversation, and I did tell him this is something that I hadn't looked into in a very long time. So I did want to go back and look at the research, and we'll talk about that next time I see him, or if he's listening right now, he'll get the scoop here. But we talked about, for instance, right off the bat, when I think about saunas, some things that make me want to say, talk to your doctor first, would be anybody who has heart problems or blood pressure problems, or any kind of breathing issues like asthma, emphysema, or they sometimes come under the big heading of COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder. So that could be a red flag. I'd probably tell you not to do that without your doctor's permission. Same thing if you have a fever. Again, your temperature is already high, so why would you want to make it even higher? That could be a little bad if you have a fever, so that's another issue that I would probably say talk to your doctor first. And then another thing to think about when you think about going into a sauna would be you're working out intensely. If you're not taking enough fluids, you could be a little low in fluids depending on the time and the intensity of the exercise. And then you go into a very hot environment for some period of time, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. Theoretically, the sauna could increase the risk of dehydration and in a worst case scenario, heat exhaustion. Although I do admit that's probably pretty rare for most people. But if you're going to be doing a sauna, you definitely want to stay hydrated before you go in, maybe even take something in there with you, but definitely drink before you go in there. Another thing to consider about the saunas, and this is something we did talk about, is that saunas are generally dark, warm, moist places. And these are really a perfect breeding ground for mold. And because of this, saunas do need to be cleaned daily. If you have one of these in your house, you have to be cleaning them yourself daily if you're using it on a regular basis. But if you're, using a sauna in, say, a fitness center, that facility needs to be cleaning that room daily. And there are procedures on how to do that. The benches, the walls, the floors, they need to be cleaned, vacuumed on a regular basis, daily, definitely. And so if you are going to be using a sauna at a fitness center, it's probably a good idea to even ask, how often do you clean the sauna? Again, the right answer is daily, in my opinion. And if they do say they do clean it daily, again, you can do your due diligence, and you can say, can I see your cleaning schedule? That's definitely something I would think anybody would want to share with you if they're doing it. But if they, they don't do that for whatever reason, I get the idea they are busy. I understand that. So it's a little hard to look inside the sauna sometimes because it's dark and you may not be able to see everything. So one of the tricks that I would use to see how good they are at cleaning the facility as a whole is I would look at the TV monitors, which now are on treadmills, ellipticals, bikes, Stairmasters. They all have these TV screens to keep you occupied while you're working out. So one of my little tricks is that I will turn off the TV screen and I will look at it. And what do you see? Do you see spots on the TV screen? And if the answer is yes, well, it's a possibility those spots are spittle and sweat. And again, if you really want to know for sure, go in the morning and work out, maybe around, 8 o'clock in the morning, when in theory there shouldn't be a lot of people using these things yet. Again, those monitors may give you an idea of what the cleaning schedule is like. That's just something that I will do. It's, one of my little, tricks that I do sometimes to see how likely they are to clean the facility. And if they're missing points, here and there on other pieces of equipment, I wonder, if they're missing anything else. So just something to think about. If you are going to be doing a sauna, again, I personally would not go into it naked. I have been in saunas where guys walk around naked. It's not a good look. And so definitely wear some shorts, especially if you're sitting down on these benches. You don't know who is sitting down there before you. So again, shorts are really a good idea. Sandals are great because, if they do have mold or bacteria on them, you're tracking that all over the place. So sandals are definitely a good idea to be wearing as well. So again, just some things to think about if you're going to be doing a sauna. But if we move away from, my general thoughts on this topic, what about saunas and in terms of health? Do they have any health properties? So I came across a review of this. It was called Clinical Effects of Regular Dry Sauna Bathing, a systematic review. These researchers, they uncovered 40 different clinical studies out there, but narrowed it down to only 13 studies that they thought were the best of the studies out there. They were randomized studies. They do point out that a lot of these investigations don't have a lot of people in them. They were, less than 40 people, sometimes around 20 in some cases. So again, that's an issue right there. So I do think we need better investigations, but they narrowed it down to 13 different studies, and they do find in this review article that there were some quote unquote potential health benefits in terms of the lungs, and that's where I want to focus this topic this week about. They did discuss 2 clinical studies of infrared saunas on people with COPD, emphysema, and stuff like that. And they reported that some of these 2 studies do appear to show there may be some improvements in some aspects of lung function. That's interesting. People seem to be able to expire air from their lungs a little bit better after the sauna than before the sauna, and that's really good. The individuals did not appear to do any better during what's called the 6-minute walk test to see how far they can walk in 6 minutes time. So based on that, the sauna may not improve exercise performance. If we look at another study they'd look at, again, these were ex-smokers, and they did have COPD. Again, most likely my guess is they're ex-smokers. They probably had emphysema. This was a small study, only 13 people. And again, they did notice that these individuals, after they had done this sauna, the oxygen in their blood appeared to improve, and that's really interesting. And they also appeared to have increased exercise ability after the sauna is over. Again, 13 people, and we are, of course, talking about people with low respiratory function to begin with, and that may or may not translate over into healthy people who do a sauna who are not impaired in terms of their lung capacity. So that's kind of what we got so far in terms of the lungs, in terms of exercise. As for the detoxing of compounds from the body when you're in the sauna, there isn't a lot of good evidence for this. This review article I'm talking about here did mention this, and they said there wasn't a lot of research to show that saunas promoted greater toxin release in the body compared to those who didn't do a sauna. I'm still going to go with the best way to detox your body. We did talk about this at the gym, is drink more fluids, move more, and eat a better diet. Eat more, more colorful foods. Generally speaking, the liver and the kidneys are pretty good at detoxing the body on their own when you give them the tools they need. So, basically for this myth, I'm going to say it's busted, kind of busted. So the research shows that maybe in some populations, people with maybe low lung function to begin with, there may be some benefits. But generally, I think we need more studies encompassing more numbers of people to get a better idea one way or another. So if you like the sauna, great. Just take some precautions and make sure it's a safe sauna. It's a clean sauna. And if you like the heat, that's great. Just don't stay in too long. Stay hydrated, and let's see what happens. So there you have it. Now, I do want to basically leave the myth alone this week and transition into the main topic that I want to talk about, and that is migraine headaches. So for the remainder of this episode, we're going to talk to Jim Menz, who is a massage therapist who has had some pretty good success helping people with migraine headache pain. And we're going to talk about, what migraine headaches are, as well as some things that you can do at home right now to hopefully improve your migraine. So let's talk to Jim. Okay, so we are live with Jim Menz. Jim is he's one of the smartest people I personally know. He has a master's degree in exercise science. He is a licensed massage therapist, and we're going to talk a lot about that today as it pertains to migraine headaches. He's a corrective exercise specialist. He teaches massage therapy. I could go on and on about Jim's credentials, but I'll leave it at that. He's the author of a book on, of all things, a lab book for nurses in nursing school called the Heart Appreciation Book, which I'll link to on Amazon so you can check that out. But today I want to put the focus on migraine headaches. I actually have an aunt who did suffer many years ago from migraine headaches. I know she tried everything under the sun, and I know there's a lot of people out there who are struggling also. And Jim has some interesting techniques that he wanted to share with people that may be able to help you get some alleviation at home, or if you seek out a massage therapist. So before we go any further, Jim, what the heck is a migraine headache?
Well, Joe, first of all, I want to thank you for your very kind introduction. I just have to make a little note there. If you, and I know you're a very sincere guy, and if you feel that I am one of the smartest guys you've ever met, my observation is that you need to get out more, brother.
Well, that is true. I do need to get out more. That's a given.
I can be the big fish in a relatively small pond, but there's a lot of good folks out there. No, but I really thank you for that. That's actually one of the first things I do when I either am working with an individual or teaching the hands. I do a continuing education class for massage therapists called Hands-On Help for Headaches, because you always have to do the snappy title, of course. And one of the things that we first touch on is the distinction between a migraine and quote unquote just a really bad headache, which of course to me there's no such thing as just severe pain. Pain is pain, and it's something that we don't want to have happen either way. There's a couple of things that distinguish whether that event is in fact a migraine. Certain characteristics such as visual effects. Some folks will often have a sensation called an aura. It may be some type of visual sensation, such as a haloing effect. You see, it seems almost like the stuff that is in front of your visual field is surrounded by a little circle of light, or half of the visual field seems a little lighter versus darker. Or sometimes you get this little special effect, like if you watch the cartoons and someone gets whacked in the head and they have like the little things floating to and from, you can see the little visuals there. Something along those lines. You also, in the case of a migraine, a lot of times, if not every time, because they're all different, that's one of the underlying themes, is that it's really hard. There's guidelines, but not necessarily a pinpoint recipe is something that really has to be very carefully diagnosed individually. But a lot of times there's sort of these phases. Someone who's a migraine sufferer can tell when it's coming on, right? I just don't feel right. Whatever that means to someone. It might be a touch of nausea. It might be a little bit of, it seems like I'm visually or audio hypersensitive, right? Things just seem louder than they used to. My nerves are a little on edge. There's something that doesn't feel good. A little bit of hypersensitivity, maybe a little bit of anxiety, and the person can sometimes tell, and this is relatively common, where someone will say, I have a chance to go do something at 5 o'clock today, but the way I'm feeling, this might not be the best evening for it. Okay. And sure enough, by a little bit later, within a couple of hours, symptoms have onset. So that's one of the distinguishing characteristics of the migraine, is the other visual and sensory sensations, and this kind of thing with the phases. You feel it coming, then you're in the throes of it, and then post symptoms very often accompanied by just utter exhaustion, The person very often hasn't eaten very well during that time either, but you'll see a lot of folks, once the pain subsides, they're still just absolutely wiped out.
And are they called those two aspects? They called the prodrome and the prostrome. Am I using those words correctly?
Yeah, prodrome or prostrome. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, what's the statistics like for migraine headaches? Do we know how many people out there get them?
There of the 300 plus million people in the United States, we're upwards of about 1/10 the population. We're in the 30 plus million range.
That's a lot of
folks. Almost 1 out of 10, 1 out of 9 by some stats. Again, plus or minus, based on some estimates. But we're upwards of 30 to 35 million Americans who get at least one migraine or similar headache. And I really go too deep into the weeds in separating whether it was a migraine or quote unquote just, and I don't like using that term, but if it was a more generic type of headache, because pain is pain. And we really want to deal with that. So we're upwards of 30, 35 million who have experienced at least one severe headache every 6 months. And the one that shocked me when I was first putting this together a couple of years ago was that 9 million Americans experience headache pain 15 days a month or more. So 9 million Americans. Now, I'm from the state of New Jersey. So if I was to just take the population of the state of New Jersey and just do that proportionally. But let's assume that those 9 million people are proportionally distributed throughout the United States. That would be upwards of almost 300,000 people in the state of New Jersey alone suffering from a headache every other day on average. When folks ask me, is this something that I can do? Is there something I can help people? And also, make it a part of my service. Like, you got to be kidding me. And I do this unofficially, Joe. If I'm teaching a class in college nutrition, which I do not quite as well as you, but it's not fair to compare me to Mozart and say I'm not as good as a piano player.
But. You are too kind. But you're definitely too kind. But so many people getting migraines. I'm assuming we don't know there's one cause, and I would imagine multiple causes. Do migraines appear? And I don't know if anybody knows the answer to this. Just something that occurred to me. Do migraines appear to be on the rise? I mean, has anybody looked at migraines, say, from the 1940s till now to see if more people now get it, or?
In the last 50 years, the diagnoses are going to be higher than they were before, but rise in diagnoses is often a result of rise in technology and recognition and insurance codes. So there's a lot of background there as well. That's actually a pretty good one. I've never actually looked at it in terms of, where were we 50 years ago, 75 years ago? It's a little bit murky. That's something that I just found out, just to use that illustration, a couple of the symptoms and the conditions that we looked at in the heart appreciation book have risen sharply, but that also has to do with MRIs and ultrasounds. And now the diagnostic technology is so much better. So diagnoses going up and incidence going up are certainly correlated, but they are somewhat independent as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mentioned my aunt Ina suffered from migraines, and I know a few other women over the years who had it as well, which makes me wonder, is this a gender mostly oriented
thing? It is.
Okay.
Yeah. The tendency for migraines, of those 30 to 35 million, about 3/4 of them are women. It's about 3 to 1 female to male. And most of the women are in that age group of around 20 to 55. So we see there that there's a large swath of the population that is female and in childbearing years. And certainly, not only through the research, but anecdotally, you'll hear that a lot. Had a lot of folks say, I get my headache as I'm getting a period. It's really prevalent in those 5 days. And one of the things I try and always include a little bit of education is, yes, that may be the last straw that trips the alarm, but there's often a lot of other things that go on with it. We were talking about what causes it a minute ago. And the answer is, could be a whole bunch of any of these things. And that it's a very individual, you almost have to play detective. And this is, what the doctors and the neurologists do. That's not something that I do as a massage person. I never go into that. I stay in my lane. But the folks who diagnose these They'll do things like a nutrition survey. Write down everything you eat for 3 days and let's see what's going on. Is there a lot of preservatives, a lot of high sodium foods? Are you hydrating? Are you getting by on water, or are you drinking down too much soda, which now you're bringing in sugar, caffeine, chocolate? It could be ingredients in whatever we're using to clean the carpet. It could be pollutants, allergens, stress, anxiety, postures at work. I've had folks from, where I teach at a couple colleges in Southern New Jersey, and I've had folks get considerable relief because I looked at their workstation and I said, look at what you're doing here. The arms of your chair have you all hiked up. Your shoulders are all hunched. So you're all scrunched up in your shoulders. Your neck is compressed. Your trapezius muscles are getting very, very short and tight, even when you're so-called relaxed, because those themes that we use is shoulders make lousy earrings. Drop your shoulders down. These folks look like you ask them a question and someone shrugs their shoulders as if to say, I don't know. But then they look like that all the time because their posture at work, and they're maybe leaning on something the whole time, or they're clicking that mouse and tapping away at the keyboard and they're leaning forward and their chin is forward, and now they're straining their eyes and they're compressing the back of their neck and all doing all kinds of things. So ergonomics has been known to help some folks. Let's do this. Let's get your keyboard to where it's at eye level so you're not looking way up or way down. Let's get your keyboard a little bit lower. So raise your seat maybe, so you're not reaching up and shrugging your shoulders, and just making your workstation fit around your body. And I've had folks go, that was it.
I literally just improved my posture as you were talking. I was doing a lot of those things.
We all do.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That's the joy of doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Is that someone will go by and go, how's that posture, Menz? And I'll be like,
how do you feel about those standing desks that are all the rage these days? I was thinking of getting one myself.
I only have anecdotal familiarity with them, and it seems like they have a place. Okay. Could be a legitimate tool in the toolbox. Probably not the cure-all, the panacea. Nothing is. But it wouldn't make sense that there would be any one thing that's going to cure all the pain, because there isn't any one thing that's causing all the pain. There's about 10 or 15 different factors that go in, and it's usually cumulative. There's that stress, there's too much driving, there's this, there's the allergens in the air, there's this, there's that, and then everything kind of rolls up, and then there's that one extra thing that, what's the thing, the straw that breaks the camel's back, and now symptoms offset. So, hey, setting up the posture, having the standing desk, maybe the kind we can stand up for a little bit, then sit back down, then move around. Maybe that allows you to stretch some muscles and change your postures in such a way that it kind of peels back the symptoms a bit.
Speaking of triggers, you covered a lot of them a second ago. What about the elephant in the room, caffeine? Does caffeine contribute to migraines? Because I got to think that a lot of people listening to us right now are probably drinking some kind of caffeinated beverage, including me right now.
Caffeine can throw someone into symptoms. Caffeine withdrawal can also throw someone into symptoms. And again, speaking, just sort of anecdotally, and also through some of the things that we've read about, there are folks who, if they are asymptomatic, they're not feeling anything. They drink a cup of coffee, it could bring on symptoms. That same person goes a couple weeks without caffeine, and one day gets a headache, maybe wakes up with a headache, drink some caffeine, drink a cup of coffee. It may take the headache away.
I've heard that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that 20s to the 50s or so is when migraines are most prevalent. Do they seem to go away as people get older? It's like 60s, 70s, 80s?
Sometimes. Okay. Sometimes, and again, combination of factors. By then, and especially as our information is getting better and better, again, you go back to someone who was born in 1920, and by the time she's turning 60, now it's 1980, the information wasn't, compiled as much. Someone who is turning 60 this year is armed with a lot more information than someone who was born half a century before them. So a lot of times it's better management on one hand, plus you've got the end of childbearing years. And as I like to joke, very often the end of the child raising years. That's one of the best, and I'm the most proud daddy in the world. But yeah, raising a little guy was kind of exhausting at times. Best thing ever happened. But, that's also, okay, you might have had a situation where someone had an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old. And now those kids are both in their 20s and 30s, and they're adults and they're good. And that stress level has come down. The activity of chasing around kids has, kind of come and gone. So some folks do age out, but not all.
My aunt had migraines, but my mom did not, which makes me wonder, is there or is there not any kind of a hereditary link between migraine headaches and siblings?
Definitely a hereditary link in generations. We've seen that often. We would look at your aunt, your aunt's mom and your mom's mom might have been the same, or if it's an aunt who's a sister of your dad. But I've known more than one family where it's mom, daughter, and granddaughter, all three.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, there is. So there is definitely a genetic component to that.
Okay. And we've never traced that down to the migraine gene or anything like that, I'm guessing.
Nothing that specific, but there definitely tends to be a correlation. And sometimes that correlation kicks in upon childbearing years. So grandmom is in her, I should get the numbers right. So you got grandmom who's in her 60s and is maybe still struggling with some symptoms. Now mom is 40 and now the daughter is 17 and is starting to become symptomatic.
So we're looking at essentially the epigenome effect of this. So your environment is somehow altering or triggering some kind of a genetic aspect, making it apparent. So there's an epigenetics as well as a genetics to migraine headaches, which again just occurred to me as you were talking. That I'm approaching this as kind of like tabula rasa, blank slate. Definitely not my area of expertise, but as you're talking, I'm thinking about things, and it sounds as though the environment that someone's in is playing a role in this. How it's playing, whether it's altering or triggering genes, kind of up to debate. But definitely something worthy of more research. Are there any myths out there that you want people to know about migraine headaches? That people ask you about, or that occur to you as you do your own research into this topic?
I think the biggest message that I try to convey is that there's a lot of causes. It's usually multifactorial, and therefore the solution is often multifactorial. I will sometimes draw on the board or in a PowerPoint that here's an old health and wellness. What is your perception of health? What does it mean to you to be healthy? And of course, in the academic sense, it's all these different phases of your life. You're exercising, you have some type of spiritual / greater sense. You got your money in order, you got your relationship. Okay, fine. A lot of folks, they look at what health means. I write the word pain and then put the red arrow through it. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks think as long as I don't have pain, I am healthy. And that includes the migraine. If I'm not in pain, I'm good. If I'm in pain, bad. And it's really that binary. And I said, no, there's a lot of other stuff going on. Your onset of your symptoms is very often the result of 10 out of 10 things had to happen. There was too much stress, not enough sleep, the pillow's too soft, you drive too much, your eyeglasses, get your eyes checked, go to a dentist, get a dental exam, sometimes something with your temporomandibular joint, and get a chiropractic adjustment. There's a lot of things that could be contributing to this, and therefore a lot of ways to possibly manage this. So I will tell folks who hundreds of miles away and they can't come to me for this specific protocol that I do that isn't really all that fancy. And they'll say, well, I got a coupon for a massage at a certain business. I'll say, go for it. Mm-hmm. Relax, get yourself some table time, soften the music, power the eyes down. And I always tell someone, you're going in to get a massage, leave your problems at the door. It's like you put them in a little bag and leave them right outside the room. Don't take them in that room with you. You can't do anything about them anyway. That hour is about you and your body and your health. Now, is that going to magically cure a headache or a migraine? No promises on that one, but it can't hurt. And that's what I always tell folks about my protocols. This may help you a lot. Mm-hmm. It will probably help you at least a little bit, and I won't hurt you.
How does what you do, manual therapy for migraines, how is that different than what traditional massage? What is the difference here? What are you doing that, say, a general massage therapist may not be doing?
It's just much more focused. There's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of very gentle strokes. It's a very gentle massage for one. Some folks like an aggressive massage. Get in there, dig deep muscle, and make the muscles ache. We're definitely not going to do that. I'm going to take someone who's very hypersensitive to begin with and can be thrown into symptoms, probably has a little bit of fear, probably has a little bit of reticence about, can you actually help me? By the time they come to me, they've probably tried any number of things or on their fourth or fifth prescription. And I don't bash doctors and prescription medicine, but they have their place. And that's a whole nother topic that some folks get very emotional about. I'm not going there. If it's working and it's improving your life, great. If that's not giving you the results you want, keep looking, keep trying. That's probably my underlying message of all of it. As my father used to say, there's a lot of there out there. Keep looking. So to address that last question, Joe, very simple. I can work on someone either on a massage table or in a chair. There's a thing called a massage chair where it has that little pillow that has the opening in the face, or even just their office chair. Things are very gentle and focused on the neck and shoulder area. And then there's just a few specific techniques and a few orders. I may address things like the upper trapezius muscle, the levator scapula muscle that runs from the top of your scapula to the base of your skull. There's another muscle called the sternocleidomastoid, the SCM. It's the one that pops out. If you turn your head to the side, there's that muscle that kind of pops out of the front of your neck. And that muscle is when you think about leaning way forward in front of your computer, all those muscles are getting short and tight, and they're taking your vertebrae up in your cervical area, your neck, and just compressing them down. And then we go to stand up and those muscles stay kind of tight. So we get more compression. So I will usually work those muscles. There's a phenomenon called trigger points, which are these little hard spots in the muscle that trigger, meaning set off pain to appear somewhere else. Some folks have knots in their muscles. Those are knots in the muscles, and they're important. We have to address those. Sometimes that knot in the muscle might be in the middle of your trapezius muscle and someone feels the head up by their ear. That's called a trigger point because the muscle imbalance is in location A and the pain is manifesting in location B. The phenomenon is called referred pain. And with a little bit of training, and it's not very hard to do, you start to recognize those patterns. So someone says, I have pain up here at my hairline. Well, they may have tightness in their frontalis muscle right at the eyebrows. So it might be a couple of inches away or over on the side, or it might be up in the back. Pain radiating in the back of their head might be coming from a tight spot at the base of that levator muscle, just above the scapula. So you kind of learn, well, if you're feeling it in location X, the source could be one of two or three other locations. And with a little bit of detective work, it's really not that hard. And then the treatment for that is to apply modest pressure, nothing that's going to hurt anybody. I never hurt anybody in a massage. I was a personal trainer for years, massage therapist for years, competed in sports and wiped myself out, but I never hurt a client. You're very familiar with the effects of over-competitive exercise. We're just going that some is good, therefore twice as much needs to be twice as good. And of course, people get themselves in a lot of trouble. There's a little bit of that among massage therapists, that if I'm putting this amount of pressure and I'm working into the muscle to N degree, if I double that, that's twice as good. And of course, now you can really start to hurt somebody and throw them into a very defensive posture. And now they're working. Like, if I'm on somebody's table, I don't want to get hurt. That may be different if someone is about to run a 10K and you need to loosen up their hamstrings and get them. Okay, that's a motivated athlete who's willing to maybe deal with a little bit of discomfort in the name of performance. But for someone who wants to feel better, I don't want to make you hurt in the name of making you feel better. It's very modest and moderate, can be done with a t-shirt. I'll work at someone right on their desk.
Is there any clinical research on manual therapy for helping migraine headaches?
There is. One study said a 77% reduction in pain after a series of 5-minute head and neck massages. 5 minutes. Now, the study did not say what those head and neck massages consisted of, but I'd be willing to say if we're talking about 5 minutes, we're not getting into a whole lot of fancy smancy stuff here. Right. So it's probably the same type of stuff that mom and dad could do to the daughter, right? The thing where you're, the shoulder rub on the trapezius muscle, then you turn your hand kind of like sideways as if you were holding a cup. Mm-hmm. So your thumb and finger are parallel to the ground, and just do the rub to the back of the neck, work that up on it, and maybe a little gentle stuff to the scalp as if you're kind of like shampooing somebody's hair. Okay. Really gentle, really basic. And upwards of 70 and 75% reduction in pain and in frequency.
So yeah, let's circle back at that, because I know a lot of people are probably either driving or who knows, maybe they're at home right now listening to us. So things they can do at home to help their migraines if they're having it. So basically like shampooing their head, their gentle massages with their fingers on their scalp.
Get in there with the fingertips. This is the kind of stuff that I used to rub my kid's head when he was a little boy. Pet the dog. The type of thing that you're doing. Fingertip pressure right into the scalp, nice and easy. And the rule there is really, really complex. Mm-hmm. Feels good is good, right? If it feels good and you go, yeah, it feels nice. Mm-hmm. And it's just kind of relaxing and we're just kind of enjoying it. Mm-hmm. That's a win. It can't hurt. And plus, I'm a huge believer in just the caring aspect of it. Well, massage therapy is caring. It is not just skilled touch, it's caring touch. I take that very seriously. The stretches, right? There's a key muscle that I've mentioned before called the levator scapula. And it runs from the top of your shoulder blade up to the base of your neck. And we use that to elevate the scapula, that is to say, to shrug your shoulders. But in as much as it pulls the shoulders up, it also pulls your neck down. So if that muscle is overly tight, because we're all hunched up all the time, and a lot of folks are elevated in their shoulders, they're jacked up. So to stretch that muscle, and it just involves kind of tipping your head sort of to the side a little bit. We're doing a podcast, so visual, drop your shoulders down, get them low, get them out of your shoulders, make lousy earrings. And turn your head about 30 degrees to one side and then kind of nod in that direction and look at or just, again, we could Google it. We could post a few stretches on your website as well. Very non-fancy. Stretching the levator scap, by all means, getting some relaxation. Look in the mirror, right? Take a little inventory. Oh, I only drink in moderation. Okay. How many drinks in what we call moderation here? Because a lot of times if I have someone take a log and write it down. If you chew on a piece of gum, write it down. If you pop a breath mint, write it down. And after about 2 days, well, I had a few chips. Okay, let's talk about that. How many times did you go back into the bag for a handful? Well, about 4. And I said, oh, so in other words, you had a few chips at a time. So get honest with yourself. Get a nutrition examination with a very good consultant or a registered dietitian. But going back to that home, hydration, big time. Most folks are dehydrated.
Have you ever noticed more migraine headaches in people who do certain exercises, such as when you were mentioning the shoulders and the levator scapula? I immediately went to shrugs in the gym, where people grab heavy weights and they hold them at their side and they shrug their shoulders up high towards their earlobes, like they don't know an answer on Jeopardy, and they tend to do a lot of that with heavy weights. Yeah. So have you ever, again, I'm just off the top of my head, you ever noticed more migraine headaches in people who do certain exercises?
Not particularly. I see a lot more in people who don't exercise at all.
Okay.
Because the enemy there, the opponent there, is the chronic postures, sitting at the desk, sitting at the TV. There's a whole new line of treatments for syndromes coming out from the use of tablets and cell phones. That's a whole nother animal. There's actually a term in physical therapy chiropractors called tech neck from the effects. And, I teach at these college campuses, Joe, and I will leave the classroom and just occasionally just observe folks. And here they come, 20 college kids, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, boom, cell phone. They're all looking at by the time they hit the door, more than half of them have that phone kind of down there by their belly button, right? And so now they're leaning forward and they've got their shoulders up there. And look at everything that's happening. They're protracting their shoulders, rolling forward. The chin's coming forward. Their eyes are gazing down. And it just, first of all, it cracks me up, because I'll nudge somebody. I'll say, look at that guy. You know who he's texting? He goes, who? And I'll point to a kid about 10 feet away and go, her. Talk to each other, people. You're killing me. But, the technology is another whole thing. So whatever it is that we're constantly doing, okay, my hands are constantly forward and my chin's constantly forward. Go the other way once in a while. Stretch backwards. Lay your head back. Constantly going this way, go the other way, stretch those muscles and move those postures around. We're really not meant to be in any one posture for 6 and 7 and 8 hours at a time. That's why the thing like the desk may be a great idea, because it allows you to, okay, now I've been sitting for 2 hours. I'm going to stand for half an hour.
Right.
Now I've been standing for an hour. I'm going to sit for half an hour. Any one posture is tough. Anybody who drives a truck and is sitting for 10 hours is in trouble. Folks who are bank tellers, I've heard this one a lot. You're standing in one spot predominantly for all those hours. Any one position is not good.
When somebody does manual therapy, whether they're with a massage therapist or maybe they're doing it on their own with their loved one, or is how long might these benefits last if they're going to experience them? Or do we even know that? An hour?
Variable.
2 days, 5 days?
Wide out. A day or two, a week or two. It's quite a big range. It seems to be a very solid rate. That number around 70% or so keeps coming around. And I will add anecdotally, and I have to qualify that this is my personal observation. So I don't have, the reams of stats that I compile. So this is my observation only. So it's not something I read from someone who read from someone who read from someone. But you also have, now you're taking my word for it. So for whatever grain of salt you need to add to this, I would say that 70% is something that's borne out in my observation and my practices.
Okay.
7 out of 10, maybe 3 out of 4. There's always some folks who you can't help. And they say, Jim, thanks for trying. It was really nice while it lasted. But to be honest with you, by the evening, it just kind of nothing's really changed. I've come to you 4 times and it's the frequency is about the same. That's about 1 out of 4 persons. And to that person, I always encourage them, keep trying, keep looking. I'm not going to be the person who says, well, if I can't help you, you can't be. It's very egotistic.
So your statistics are essentially with you, about 75% people are helped to some degree. That's a pretty good track record. You're based in New Jersey, Delaware, in that area.
Yes.
So we got people all over the world listening to us right now. Suppose they're in another location and they're trying to find some kind of a manual therapy specialist. How do they find one? What questions should they ask?
I'm going to start my search to someone who works in a more clinical setting. A hospital wellness center, a chiropractic clinic, a physical therapist, a medical spa even, something that has more of a medical therapeutic element to it. Not that your boutiques and your spa settings don't have some very skilled and dedicated people. So I never want to denigrate anyone, but just pure luck of the draw, certain settings have a tendency to have more of a fixed protocol. I'm going to go to a certain location. They're going to have the massage, the facial, maybe get the hot stones. And those things are very relaxing and wonderful. But if I want someone to address my headache, I'm going to look at more of the therapeutic, the therapy types of the allied medical, the chiropractic, the physical therapy, the medical, even a community center, someone where the person is his or her own business and says, listen, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've worked with a lot of folks who have headaches. So if I were to go to what we might call a boutique, and again, that's not to, denigrate, they're going to have something they'll call sports massage, whatever that may be, or they may have stones or other, you get the thing where you get the hot towel at the end, and it's all wonderful. It feels fantastic and may alleviate symptoms. If that's the only game in town, give it a try. But I would prefer to be able to ask that person, do you have any specific, have you ever taken a class? Do you have any experience? I got headaches coming on. You ever work with anybody who's got headaches? Someone who's been in the business for more than 15, 20, and just years of experience. If they've been in the business for 20 years, there's a pretty good chance they've worked on some folks who have headaches.
So really good. You can't go wrong asking them, do you have any problems with migraine headaches? Can you help migraine headaches? That's a great question to start off any conversation with. So are there anything else out there you've ever encountered? Acupuncture, stuff like that might be a benefit to
everything.
Everything.
As my loving dad used to say, there's a lot of there out there. One of the inspirations for developing the headache protocol, first one was my own son, who used to get about one every, I'd say in 3 weeks, he'd get 2 headaches every week and a half. So between 2 and 3 headaches a month, usually toward the end of the school week. I think he was in 7th and 8th grade at the time. 13, 14 years old, bones are growing, teenagers, bus rides, fluorescent lights, those 90-pound book packs that they used to, the backpacks on these kids. And it just kind of caught up to them. And so I developed, because I'm not going to sit around and watch my kids suffer. I'm a massage therapist. So I got out my books and, dug some things up on the interweb. Yeah. And came up with some things. And that was part of what got me in. I was not willing to see him lose 3 days a month to pain. I just wasn't okay with that.
No, of course not.
And part of the evolution of this was someone I was asked to help about 10 years ago. And she was a brain tumor survivor who had awful pain almost on a daily basis, was taking Advil like they were Tic Tacs. It was dreadful. And her surgeon, who saved her life, huge props to this guy, at one point after she was on about her 6th prescription medication, and again, I'm not bashing surgeons, he saved her. But he said to her after about the 5th or 6th prescription, look, you're alive. Pain's just going to have to be a part of it. There's nothing else that can be done. Wow. And I rail against the concept that if I can't help you, you can't be helped. And so that's one of the things that I always encourage folks. Try acupuncture. Will it work? It may not, but it's not going to hurt you. Someone will say essential oils. I'll say, hey, if you've never tried it and it may help you, give it a shot. Relaxation techniques, focused breathing, yoga. I've known folks who say, I have much less pain in my life when I do my yoga regularly. Skip a couple weeks of yoga, boom, here comes the headache. Keep looking. Read the tea leaves. Not that I don't care, but I'm not the person, if my techniques do not help you, I'm not going to be the one who say, well, I can't help you, therefore you're hopeless. Because that just makes me sound arrogant.
I get you. Hey, you mentioned exercise a little while ago. So obviously we're in agreement that exercise can probably help migraine, headaches,
everything.
And have you ever seen a difference between aerobic type activities and say anaerobic, like say strength training? Is there a difference in how the body might respond to exercise to the different modalities out there, aerobic versus anaerobic?
The research that I've seen doesn't necessarily differentiate in modalities so much as high intensity versus moderate. You see this kind of moderation in all things theme. Moderate exercise, not to be overdone. One of the triggers of migraines and other pains is, gee, what a shock, overexertion. So all things kept in moderation. Again, that moderation theme, right? Drink a cup of coffee or 2. Don't do 6 of them. Have a drink or 2. Don't have 7. But exercise in moderation seems to be very effective. And plus, we both know how much that helps keep your stress levels down.
Yeah. And for those of us who are saying, well, what the heck is moderate exercise? One way I like to describe it is if you can talk while you're exercising,
yes,
that's moderate exercise.
Yes.
That's one great way to distinguish moderate exercise. And if you're,
it's an oldie but a goodie.
It is.
Talk test. I will use, and this is something we actually put in the Heart Appreciation, the Nurse's Guide to the Cardiovascular System. Thank you for the plug, Joe. Is this concept of, it's called the rating of perceived exertion, the RPE, when you simply ask the person, how hard do you feel that you're working on a scale of 1 to 10? On a 1 to 10, what's your effort level? 1 being 0, you could do this in your sleep. 10 being you are about to collapse. I'll tell someone, work to about a 5, maybe a 6. And I've told that to folks who are in their 70s and 80s. Oh, I'm going to go to my daughter's. I want to take a walk through the park. How fast, how hard? I said, keep it to about a 5 or a 6. And they all go, oh, okay. Everybody knows on a scale of 1 to 10. I'll say, if I just recently saw the latest movie, the hot movie, I said, you know what? I'll give it a 6. You know that I thought it was okay, but not great. If I give it a 2, you go, wow, that's a real stinker. If I give it an 8, you're like, hey, that's a pretty good movie. Everybody knows what the scale of 1 to 10 means. So work it to about a 5, maybe a 6.
I like the RPE scale as well. I like to do them in conjunction. Have them tell me how they feel on a scale of 1 to 10. Then I get the talk test and I get the RPE test.
It's free. It travels. Doesn't cost you, and everyone knows how to use it. I've never had anyone.
And you hit the nail on the head. They are free, and my motto is, if it's free, it is for me. I like that. Well, you touched on this a little while ago, I think, but let's just circle back. There's different types of massages out there. Is there one massage modality that you might recommend for someone who has migraines, or one you would tell them to stay away from?
I would tell them to stay away from anything aggressive. Anything that there's a massage modality. Is the type of stroke is called tapotement, and the first three words are TAP. You're tapping, right? And that's you'll if you ever have seen a depiction, you'll see it like they're doing like the little hand chops, or it's called cupping, and it looks like you're almost like playing the drums on somebody. So that's percussion and percussive, and I never do that for someone who is in pain. That's something I might do if someone is getting ready to go do their 10-mile, because that's very stimulating. Yeah. Jacks you up a little bit. I'll go, back of the hamstrings, boom, boom, boom. Yeah, I'll play, I'll do a John Bonham drum solo, because that's pumping them up. For someone who is symptomatic, first of all, I want them to relax and I want them to feel safe, because they are probably very stressed out and very tired of this. Yeah. They're very often very afraid. I've been getting these headaches for 7 years, and I am scared to death that this is never going to stop. And the first thing I tell them is that you're in good hands. I'm going to take care of you. I'm not going to let anything bad happen. There's a very good chance that I can help you at least a little bit. There's a pretty good chance that I can help you a lot, and I'm not going to hurt you. So the first thing I want them to feel is safe, and I'm not going to accomplish that if I start smashing on them. So the strokes are very gentle. I do a lot where it's continuous contact. So you're not taking the hand away and then replacing it, and taking the hand away and replacing it. Because every time the hand lifts off and then reestablishes contact, that person's brain has to say, is that safe? Is that okay? Someone's touching me. What is this? And even though, of course, it's in a massage setting, that's one of the first things we learn, constant contact. Because now they know, yep, same guy. He's got me. It's Jimbo. Everything's cool. And I will often use the PNF stretches, the assistance resistance form of stretch, because stretching a few key muscles is just golden. And something called a trigger point release that I think we mentioned before. A trigger point is a hard spot in the muscle where basically the actin and myosin has not disengaged. So it's a tiny piece of the muscle that didn't unclench.
This has been really enlightening. You taught me a lot about this whole migraine headache thing that I was not really aware of. I know it was enlightening to a lot of people. How can people best reach out to you, Jim? I know you're all over the place. You're teaching, you're writing books and all that stuff. But if someone want to reach out to you, ask you a question or so, how can they find you?
I would also mention that I am available for singing engagements, but having actually people who've heard me sing have decided that that's probably, I should stick to books and teaching. Yeah. I'm sure they meant that very kindly. No, but in all seriousness, Joe, I appreciate that. My name is James. The last name is Menz, Menz, and James Menz on Facebook, ProfessorMenz.com. And even if someone just remembers it's James Menz, if we typed in jamesmenz.com, that goes to my website too. And then I have a little landing page there with a link to Amazon for the book. Got some other stuff coming up on kinesiology and the headaches over the book. Some of the classes that I'll be teaching to massage therapists for headaches and back pain and things. And so we'll link that, and even also take it to some courses that I've developed that's kind of like a college software, like if you wanted to take an anatomy and physiology course for a few bucks. And here's the quizzes and the PowerPoint. So James Menz or ProfessorMenz.com.
Outstanding. And I'm going to link to all that as well.
Any of those specifics, I'm happy to answer that, to the best of my ability. But, the general theme is going to be keep looking, keep the faith. There's a lot out there. I appreciate you helping me get the word out.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Jim. So again, that's how to find Jim. And I'm going to link to his book and his websites and stuff. So if anybody's driving, no worries there. I got you covered. So again, thanks much, Jim. I appreciate you spending time with us.
Always a pleasure, Joe. I appreciate your time, buddy.
All right, take care.
All right.
So what did you think? I actually thought this was really good. I learned an awful lot about migraine headaches, and I'm going to link to some stretches of different muscles Jim brought up in the episode notes. If you want to try any of the techniques that he brought up, this will make it a little bit easier for you. So check back the episode notes for more on that. But that is about all I got for you this episode, except for one last piece of business, and that is the quote of the day, which comes to us this week from NFL legend Roger Staubach, who said, "There is no traffic jam along the extra mile. Pretty good words. Until next week, gang, I'm Joe Cannon. Go out, be safe, and where you can, do try to make a difference.